Well, here we are. It's Eclipse Day on the Fun Astrology Podcast. Thanks for checking in and for checking the sky with us here this morning. We're going to cover this eclipse. Now, many of you will hear this after the eclipse, so really that's going to be our focus. But again, to just go over the specifics, we went into more detail of yesterday. So if you didn't catch yesterday, would encourage you to go back and listen to that. The eclipse is only over a small swath of, you have to be almost sitting on top of the world, literally, if you were going to see this 100%, because it is a little tiny swath that basically goes from the Canadian border up to the North Pole and over a little bit. If you go to the funastrology.com webpage, right toward the top is the chart for today, and also a link there where you can watch it live. It peaks at 6:41 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, to study this, I went back and looked at some of the notes that I have on financial astrology, because financial astrologers perk their little ears up around eclipse seasons. And this is where, we kind of mentioned yesterday, the degrees in the chart become a point of emphasis. So 19 degrees is where this is occurring. So like we talked about yesterday, looking around your chart and seeing if you have anything close, what you have in Gemini, and then in particular where 19 degrees Gemini might be aspecting something else in your own chart. That's the financial astrology technique. So here's what the financial astrologer would do with this. They would take a company's birth chart, which is basically, these are published online, by the way. Astro Data Bank has a wide collection of the first day that companies traded. So let's just take one that everybody knows. Let's just say Apple. And this is totally made up because I'm just using it as an example. That's not the case. But let's say that Apple has Jupiter in Aquarius. Now, that would be a good thing for Apple to have if it doesn't already. I'm not looking at Apple's chart, but let's just say that it did. And let's say that it had Jupiter in about the middle of Aquarius. Well, that would fit because that's technology, right? So, boom, expanding technology and the company's growth. Well, that also would be in a trine aspect to the sun and moon at 19 degrees Gemini. So the financial astrologer looking at the eclipse and looking at that Jupiter at 19 or let's say 15 degrees right there in the middle of Aquarius would buy Apple because it would expect expansion of that trigger of that aspect. You see how that works? So we're talking about synthesizing your chart here, and this is part of this course that I'm going to be building. Now that I finished that audiobook, I'm focusing on two things. The new video that premiered yesterday on our Facebook group, which is the Subconscious Mind Mastery podcast listeners on Facebook. If you're not part of that group, we would invite you in. Just fill out the 4 questions that you see there, answer those because I read them and I want to know how you came and what you are interested in. It really helps me a lot. So answer those and then look at the video from yesterday as kind of something that I've been working on with some beautiful landscape footage, drone footage, and scenery from around here, about no more than an hour's drive or so from the house. And I'm working on this course where we're going to learn astrology 101 fun style. And then probably the second part will be how to synthesize, just like what we were talking about there. Because my idea would be to teach you to look at the chart exactly the way that you hear me do here, that you could do for yourself. So obviously it's a lot of work to put that together on the front end, but it is coming and it will be great and it will be fun. We're not going to make it. This is Mars, and Mars represents the warrior side of our... No. We don't do that around here, as you know. So let's just take a look around today's chart and see if we have any activations. And it's ironic that I just mentioned Jupiter in Aquarius. We've got about the opposite. We have Saturn in Aquarius at 13 degrees. We have Uranus in Taurus at 12 degrees. So there are 2 potential candidates that we could explore, realizing that those orbs, or the distance between 19, is pretty wide. One is 6, one is 7. In other words, I know it's early. 19 minus 13, so that's Saturn, would be 6. And 19 minus 12, that's 7. And if a picture helps, then the chart, today's chart at 6:41 this morning, is on the Fun Astrology webpage, right on the homepage, right up toward the top. It will be every day. I'm going to put the daily chart and the aspect notes there for every day that we do the podcast. So you can get in the habit of checking that out. It will be there. So look at Uranus in Taurus. That's the orange sign. And the little blue thing with wings at 12 degrees. And then look at Saturn in Aquarius. Those are the two squiggly lines on top of each other and sitting there at 13. Now, this is the big aspect that we've been talking about. And even yesterday, my brother sends me this article where Deutsche Bank is coming out with this big inflation warning, saying that inflation could be a global catastrophe. Well, now look, I'm not predicting. I learned, I got my hand slapped on even going there. But we've been watching Saturn and Uranus, knowing that it can change and shake up and shift financial markets. We've seen it in the past. And we know that the eclipse is sitting right there near those planets. Now, the other thing about eclipses is this is new moon energy, so this would be creating into new things, and that with eclipses, typically astrologers will teach that you have to allow 6 to 18 months for the eclipse theme to unfold. So this is a give it some time, but yes, it can be some activation. And I know a lot of us are wanting to activate things related to money in our own life. So, especially if you have a correlating area, like somebody yesterday was asking me to look at their chart, and they had the midheaven in Gemini. Well, that's our career. So the midheaven was conjunct the eclipse. Wow. So that's a perfect time to look at this total energy and maybe to make some changes related to career. Now, here's one other thing, especially if the eclipse has already happened. Remember, the moon, the reason I like for us to follow the moon is because it is one of the most fundamental natural rhythms of the earth. It is a fundamental cycle. It rotates every 2 weeks, and it's almost like breathing, waxing, waning, orbiting every 27.32 days. The menstrual cycle, the birth cycle, it's a rhythm. It's a breathing exercise, waxing, waning. So if you're catching this after the eclipse, realize that we are now back to the waxing phase. That's why we create on the new moon, because it expands for the next 2 weeks. So if you didn't catch it, if you didn't watch it, that's fine. Just catch the waxing, the growing, incubate, plant the seed. In other words, think back to the birth cycle, conception, and then let it grow and let it expand. All right? So you didn't miss anything if you weren't up for it. No problem. Just follow the energy. And that's a great energy to follow every month anyway. All right, have a great one. I'm going to be watching, and I will see you back tomorrow. We have some great listener questions, and we're going to tackle them over the next several days, including the weekend. Weekend podcasts, listener questions coming up right here on the Fun Astrology Podcast. Thanks for staying around, and happy eclipse, everybody. Oh, it's time. It's time. Let's go. Bye-bye.